Hey, my reactor. So we back with Pia, chapter 20, Orphan, and I'm continuing. Like I said, it's a long chapter. What if someone escaped? Pia said. Would Would she tell you about that? The nurse's eye went wide. Mercy me, I would think so. Then she furrowed her brows, thinking. On the other hand, Mother Joe is extremely proud of running a tight ship. If something like that happened, she would want word to get out that someone had pulled the wool over her eyes. Would you ask her for me? Ask her what, child? If someone escaped. Oh, no, child. Woe betide the nun who questions Mother Joe about her competence. Could you ask if her could you ask her if a boy named Finn was adopted? And who do you think she is suspect of putting me up to do that? PSI me. That's right. Now take my advice before you get yourself into more trouble. I suggest you forget about your friend for now and worry about yourself. Yes, Sister Agnes, Pia said. But that was impossible. On a Monday afternoon, several weeks later, Pia's splint and sling were removed. Sister Ernestine informed her that Mother Joe wanted to see her. Following the sisters into a hallway she'd never seen before, Pia fought to stay calm. It was the first time she'd ever been summoned to Mother Joe's office, and she had no idea what was going to happen. Maybe Mother Joe was going to tell her something about Finn. Maybe she was finally being released. Maybe there was news about the twins or Vader. Whatever it was going to be very good or very bad. Instead of giving herself the vapors, imagine all sorts of scenarios. She concentrated on putting one foot in front of the other. Otherwise, she might trip and fall in a heap. When they entered the office, Mother Joe put down her pen, and gestured for Pia to take a seat on the other side of her desk. Pia did as she was told, sitting on her hands to keep from shaking. Sister Ernestine stood near a set of bookshelves, her arms crossed. Got to see. Over her chest. Black and white photographs covered the wall above Mother Joe's head. Orderly congregations of children posing in the play yard, their faces dark and somber, and groups of nuns holding babies gathering on the front step. Some of the photos look faded and old, while others look more recent. Pia shivered, wondering how many children had passed through St. Vincent's, how many had been beaten with leather straps, force-fed, or locked in a basement room. How many had died? How many had sat where she was sitting now, waiting to hear news that would forever change their lives? How is your arm, Miss Lange? Mother Joe said. Pia pulled her eyes from the haunting photos and tried to focus on the here and now. Part of her wanted to stop time to give herself a moment to prepare for whatever happened next. The other part of her wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Miss Lange, Mother Joe said. Yes, Mother Joe. Pia said, my arm feels fine. In truth, it still ached, and her wrist didn't seem as straight as it used to be. But there was no point in saying any of that. No one cared. Good, I'll get right to the point. Then, now that you're strong again, we're sending you to Bybury to live with a Dr. and Mrs. Hudson. They're looking for help with their children and housework in exchange for room and board. You'll leave this afternoon. Pia went rigid. But, I thought you was going to release me. That's what I'm doing, Miss Lange. Orphans are bound out all the time. But we've been unable to do it for a while because of the epidemic. There are still a few flu cases cropping up here and there. But the rest of her words were buried beneath Pia's thunderous heartbeat. No, she said, louder than intended. I can't go there. I won't. Mother Joe frowned. This is a good opportunity, Miss Lange, she said. If you don't take it, I offer it to someone else. Pia heart raced, trying to figure out how to change Mother Joe's mind, but she couldn't string two thoughts together. I thought you wanted to leave St. Vincent's. I do, but, well, Bayberry is in the northeast section of Philadelphia. You should be thankful. I'm keeping you in the city. Your only other choices go out west to work for a family there. There's a train leaving for Kansas tomorrow, and Jenny and some of the other girls will be on it. One way or another, we need to make room for incoming children. It's your choice, Miss Lange. Pia couldn't breathe. She couldn't leave Pennsylvania. She just couldn't. How long would I have to stay at the Hudson's? Why? Until you're an adult, of course. A white, blinded panic rushed through Pia's body, making her head and chest feel like they were going to burst. Tears filled her eyes, and she looked down at her pale hands in her laps, swimming like white fish in the brown sea of her worn skirt. All this time she thought she was going to be let go, that she'd be free to look for Ollie and Max. Now she was just being sent to another prison. It was like being put in St. Vincent's all again. She took a deep breath and tried to think straight. Maybe it'd be easier to escape from someone's house. She just had to come up with a new plan. Yes, Mother Joe. Yes, what does that mean, Miss Lange? It means I go to the Hudson's, Mother Joe. Wonderful. I think you made the right decision, Mother Joe picked up her pen again. Miss O'Malley and her driver will take you there following lunch. Pia gritted her teeth. Not Miss O'Malley again. She stood on wobbly legs and turned towards the door. Oh, and one more thing, Miss Mother Joe. Yes, Mother Joe. And one more thing, Mother Joe said. Yes, Mother Joe, Pia said. Make sure you're on your best behavior at the Hudson's. If they're not happy with you, with your work, or you trying pulling stunts like you pull here, you will either be sent to a city asylum or the Bayberry Mental Hospital. After the day, we no longer have room for you here at St. Vincent's. Sitting cross-legged in a splendid bed of Miss O'Body, wagon headed onto the wooden sideboards as it bumped along the cobblestones. Pia shivered beneath a threadbare blanket. She wasn't sure if she was shaking because of the cold or because she didn't know what lay ahead. Not only would it be even harder for Vader to find her now, she had no idea what kind of people Dr. and Mrs. Hudson was, or how she would be treated. It was hard to believe anyone who turned an orphan into a servant could be compassionate and kind. For all she knew, Mother Joe had purposely taken her out of the frying pan and put her into the fire. Along with her being scared, her heart ached knowing she'd never see the babies at St. Vincent again. Edith had warned her not to get attached, but her eyes grew misty when she thought of Alana, who clung to Pia as if she were her mother, and little Yoki, who never cried, even when he had a dirty diaper or it was past his meal time. There were others she would miss too. Everything sad face will forever haunt her dreams, but her bond with Alana and Yoki were the deepest. With only a few minutes to say goodbye to the babies and Edith, who said little except, "You shouldn't have tried to escape, and good luck." She felt like she was deserting them. It felt like abandoning Ollie and Max all over again. Maybe she deserved whatever happened next. Despite her fear and heartache, she was grateful to be out of that orphanage and relieved to see the city coming back to life. Motor cars, horse-drawn wagons, and trolleys filled the street. Everyone hurrying to their next destination. Horns beat, horse whined, men yelled, and police blew whistles. Many people still wore gauze masks over their nose and mouths, mostly women and young children, but otherwise it seemed like the epidemic had finally come to an end. Breathing in the crypt's air to clear her lungs of the smell of St. Vincent's, the disinfectant and urine, the thick, invisible layers of sorrow and fear, she couldn't help but feel envious of those who seemed to be returning to normal. Surely almost everyone had been touched by the flu in one way or the other, but for many, the nightmare was likely over. Even if they lost loved ones to the disease, at least they knew what had happened to them, and at least they could try to start over. She, on the other hand, felt like she was stuck to perjury. Taking care of the husband children weighed on her mind too, and the possibility that she might discover they were sick or hurt when she touched them. At St. Vincent, she had hardened herself to the fact that there was little medical help available for the orphans and tried to ignore her aches and pains unless they were severe. Even then, the nuns wouldn't find a doctor. The sickest babies were sent to the sick hall and never came back. The rest was nursed by her and Edith, who could do little more than give them onion or catnip tea and make poultries out of cold or bread and milk. Sometimes bottles of Miss Wisdow's Susan syrup were donated to the orphanage, but not often, and it didn't seem to help much anyway, other than making the baby sleep. She never forgot the time 8-month-old Alice had come down with what Sister Agnes thought was the quote. How she had wiped his small body with a cool rag and held him for hours while he coughed, her own chest aching with each bark, only to find the next morning that he had passed away in the night. It was like losing her brothers all over again. She couldn't stop crying the rest of the day. Another thing that worried her was that the father of the Hudson family was a doctor. He and his wife would never believe her if she sensed something was wrong with one of their children. Either that or they'd think she was crazy and send her to the mental hospital, like Mother Joe said. Just thinking about it made her stomach churn with nausea, and it went without saying that they could never find out what she done to her own brothers. As the driver steered the horse around the wagons and trollers, each mile slogging into the next, Pia scanned the fences on the sidewalks, desperately searching for Veda, Finn, Ollie, and Mac. When she saw women holding babies or pushing prams, she got up on her knees to get a better look. Mother Joe had warned her to behave, but spied if she had spied the twins anywhere, she would have jumped out of that wagon without a second thought. Even the threat of being sent to a asylum couldn't have stopped her from doing that. She thought she saw her father once, striding along the curb at the end of the Goodwill Street, his hands deep in his pockets, his eyes on the ground. The man had the same dark hair, the same broad shoulders, and trimmed beard. He even walked like Vader, with lanky stride that made his legs look 100 feet long. She opened her mouth to call him out, but he stopped to look up at the pedestal clock, revealing his entire face. It wasn't him. She sank back in the wagon bed, tears misting her eyes. In a city of thousands, how would she ever find the fool she needed most? After what seems like forever, the wagon turned onto a residential street lined with sidewalks, massive homes, and manicured front lawns. Each house seems bigger and more elaborate than the last, with corner towers, high peaked gables, and porches with spandrels and turnposts. 4 or 5 families could have lived in each one with rooms to spare. Here and there, tattered strips of crepe hung from doorways, but not nearly as many as she's seen in the tenements and slums. Finally, the driver stopped the wagon in front of the brick 3-story with tall windows and oriental trim and white shutters. Gardens and bushes with winter brown stems and blackening leaves filled the front lawns, and a stone path led up to the front steps. Pia trembled even harder. The outside of the house looked warm and inviting, but who knew what would await for her inside? Someone who will beat her for the slightest mistake, someone who will send her away without a second thought if she didn't live up to their expectations, a cold bed in a locked basement room. Miss O'Malley got down from the wagon and instructed Pierre to do the same. Pierre grabbed the blanket and climbed over the sideboard, shaking and trying not to fall. I won't be long, Miss Marley said to the driver. Follow me, Miss Lange. She hurried along the path, went up a set of painted steps, and crossed the front porch. Pia wrapped the blanket around herself, gathered it up under her chin, and did as she was told, her stomach churning. Miss O'Malley glanced behind her to make sure she was coming, then marched back down the steps and yanked the blanket off her shoulders. This ain't yours, she snapped. It belongs to the orphanage. She thrust the blanket at her. Now put it back. Pierre returned the blanket to the wagon and went back to where Miss Molly waited, her arms wrapped around her teeth chattering from nerves. She thought about running and running, but what if Miss Molly and the driver caught her again? The next stop might be an insane asylum. For now, she'd take her chances with the doctor and his wife. Maybe she'll have a warm bed, good food to eat. Maybe the husband will be kind and understanding. Maybe by some miracle the day will come when she would tell them about Ollie and Max and they'd help her look for them, or at least give her the freedom to try. If you pull anything like that here, Miss Marley said, or try to run again, you'll find yourself sent away so fast it will make your pretty little head spin. And whatever you end up will be a lot worse than St. Vincent's, understand? Pia thought about saying she wasn't trying to steal the blanket, but it would be a waste of breath. Instead, she nodded and said, yes, ma'am. Miss O'Malley climbed the steps again, waiting for Pia to follow, then eyed her up and down. Put your arms down and stand straight, she hissed, and look happy. Pia dropped her arms and tried to smile. It felt more like a grimace. Miss O'Malley studied the mailbox. Above a nameplate that read Hudson, a Cooper sign read the entrance to Dr. Hudson office in the back of the house. A handwritten sign racked the front door read no visitors. Miss O'Malley produced a piece of paper from her coat pocket and folded. "'Tis this right place," she said to herself, then returned the paper to her pocket and knocked. On the other side of the door, heavy footsteps hurried along a hard floor. A lace curtain drew sideways in a slight twilight window and sprang back. After some jostling on the other side, the handle turned and the door opened. A tall man with blonde, side-parted hair and a penciled-in mustache came out on the porch, closing the door partway behind him. Miss O'Malley and Pia stepped back to give him room. It was only then that Pia noticed his left forearm was missing, the bottom half of his jacket sleeve folded and pinned. "May I help you?" he said. "I'm dropping this girl off from St. Vincent's," Miss O'Malley said. "Mother Joe sent me." "Oh, yes," the man said. "I'm Dr. Hudson." He smiled. He studied Pia for a... Wait a minute, y'all. Okay, he studied Pia. Ooh. Ooh. For a moment, then turned his attention to Miss O'Malley. The nuns were instructed to send someone healthy. "Hey," Miss O'Malley said, "Miss Lange had the flu and survived. I took her from the infirmary to the office myself. Mother Joe can tell you." The doctor looked at Pia. "Is this true?" Pia nodded. To her surprise and relief, he smiled at her, a warm, genuine smile that lit up his blue eyes. "Welcome, then, Miss Lange." He went back inside and held the door open. "Please come in." Pia entered the grand house, her face growing hot, then stepped aside to await further instruction. The foyer was so big at her family's old apartment was the foyer was as big as her family's old apartment, with a shiny wood floor and a marble top side table filled with colored glass vases and photos of young girls to in hair ribbons and white dresses. Pia had never seen such an elegant, bright room. It looked like it belonged in a castle. Miss O'Malley made a move to follow her inside, but Dr. Hudson blocked her way and she stopped short, shock and anger contorting her face. "I'm sorry," Dr. Hudson said. "I don't mean to be rude, but we've got young children in the house, and there's still a lingering threat of the flu. We just learned of a small resurgence in the city, so we're not taking any chances. My wife will have a fit if I let you in." "But Miss O'Malley started. "I'm sorry," Dr. Hudson said. "Again, thank you for bringing Miss Lange to us. You're free to go now." Hearing the doctor say there were more flu cases in the city, I felt ill. What was the nightmare starting up again? Did the thousands of people on the street have any idea? Why wasn't it being shouted from the rooftop? Just then, a red-haired woman, squatted an infant in her arm, appeared at the other end of the foyer. Her bottle green eyes quivered with nerves. She was pretty and petite, with a delicate nose and thin pink lips. Her blue dress shimmered in the light. Each seam straight and true, each fold smooth and even, in stark contrast to her disheveled hair and tired face. "Who is this, darling?" she said. "Did you send them away?" When she saw Pia and Miss O'Malley, she stopped short and clutched the baby to her chest. "And if they come to steal?" "As if they come to steal him." "It's fine, dear," Dr. Hudson said. "I sent for someone to help with the children." The woman gave him a worried look. "But I thought we were going to wait until we knew it was safe." "I know," he said, "but don't worry. I asked the officer to send someone healthy and they did. She had the flu and survived. I realized we planned on waiting, but you're exhausted and need to rest. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you." The woman sighed and her face softened. "Oh, Dr. Hudson, you're such a dear," she said, "and you know what's best, of course." She edged closer, eyeing Pierre. "Look at you, you poor thing. Where on earth is your jacket?" Pierre shrugged, a small measure of relief washing over her. So far, the doctor and his wife seemed pleasant enough. Maybe working for them wouldn't be so awful as she imagined. Mrs. Hudson gave Miss O'Malley a disgusted look. "Why, pray tell, isn't this child wearing a coat, or at very least wrapped up in a blanket? Are you supposed to watch over the children and your kid?" Miss O'Malley blanched. "I don't work at the orphanage, ma'am," she said. "I only do what the nuns pay me to do." "Well, it's still winter out there. Shame on you all for being so heartless." "But Miss O'Malley started. Dr. Hudson started to close the door, forcing Miss O'Malley back across the threshold. "Thank you again for delivering Miss Lane," she said. "If we need anything else, we'll send a telegram to Mother Joe. Good day, Miss." Miss O'Malley hung up, then turned and marched across the porch. Dr. Hudson closed the door all the way and winked at his eye, clearly amused. Mrs. Hudson smiled warmly back at him, then reached out to put a dainty, fluttering hand on Pierre's arm. Pierre stiffened and instantly drove back. Thankful Mrs. Hudson didn't seem to notice. Instead, she wrinkled her nose as if smelling something rotten and pulled her hand away. "What should we call you, dear?" Pierre looked down at herself. Did she smell bad for the first time? She noticed the glaring difference between her clothes and the Hudson's. Next to Mrs. Hudson's shimmering blue dress and the doctor's navy suit and tie, she looked like she rolled in mud and let it dry. Everything about her, from the dress to her leggings to her shoes, looked anxious and brown, like the superior colors of an old photograph. Compared to her outfit, even the doormat seems a dazed shade of cranberry. "My goodness, child," Mrs. Hudson said, laughing softly. "Has the cat got your tongue?" "More relaxed now." She swayed gently back and forth, rocking the baby in her arms. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Pierre said. "My name is Pierre Lange." "Well, despite my initial reaction, Pierre," Mrs. Hudson said, "I'm glad you're here, and I'll be grateful for your help with the children. She gazed lovely down at the baby boy, who looked to be barely 2 months old. He blinked up at her, perfectly content. This is our youngest, Leonard James. We call him Leo. He's a really good baby, but with the others to care for as well, I admit I've been a little overwhelmed. He's beautiful man, Peter said, and he was with strawberry blonde hair and his father masculine chin. Remembering Arlie and Max were that small, sorrow tightened her chest and she blinked back the tears forming in her eyes, partly from grieving, partly from relief, partly from disbelief. Hopefully no one noticed. Will you be all right for a little while, darling? Dr. Hudson said to his wife. I need to return to the office, but I shouldn't be long. I'm fine, Mrs. Hudson said. Thank you, sweetheart. She gave her husband a peck on the cheek, then turned to Pia again. I'm sure you're starving, but first things first. Before I introduce you to the girls, you need to get cleaned up. After that, I'll fix you something to eat and we'll get you settled. Does that sound all right with you? And I will be back. Like I said, this is a long chapter. Bye, my reactors.